You've got the first couple of verses to read. Go ahead and read those, and we'll read through the end of the psalm. Psalm 127.
Except the Lord build a house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh, but not in vain, but in vain. Excuse me. It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows, for so he giveth his beloved sheep.
You want it read?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb, a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate.
All right, thanks. So question one, the psalm is connected with Solomon. The heading says the Song of Ascents of Solomon. What do you see in the content that might connect it to him? The things that you see in the psalm that like, oh, that kind of goes with Solomon, it fits.
Building the temple.
Yeah, so building a house, and the temple was often referred to as the house of God. Solomon's the one who was physically in charge of building the temple. And so that reference certainly fits Solomon.
I think of his vanity, vanity,
Yes.
Yeah.
And so from the book of Ecclesiastes, that theme that, and Solomon writes Ecclesiastes, and it certainly fits with what we see.
Did you get any jobs yet? Did he get any
I don't think
jobs
so
yet?
yet.
So it's actually a different word in the Psalm than in Ecclesiastes that's translated vain here, vanity there. But the idea is similar. And so, that would have reminded them of Solomon, and it again connects. Is there anything else?
He had a lot of wives, so he probably had a lot of children in
That's an
maybe have 1,000
interesting
wives or
connection.
something, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Wives and
Yeah.
concubines, and
Yes.
probably had 3,000 children.
So he was like, "You guys, don't do what I did. This is the way you should do it." Anything else? The themes here and the way that it's written have a lot of parallels with things in the book of Proverbs. A lot of Proverbs about family, about house. And so again, Solomon wrote a lot of the Proverbs, and so that all fits. The other thing that's just kind of a little interesting thing is at the end of verse 2, he gives to his beloved sleep. And the word beloved there is from the same root word as what we find in 2 Samuel 12, verse 25, where it tells us that Solomon also had the name Jedediah. And Jedediah is the beloved of the Lord. And so it's just interesting that word that connects with his name is used by him in this psalm.
Was it another language from another language?
What do you mean?
Was it that he had
No. It's most likely that Solomon was more of a, like his name as king, his kind of kingly, and Jedediah was more his
given name?
Yeah, his name at home,
Yeah.
how they would have talked to him in the family type of thing. So, I mean, we don't hear about that name much, but it's in the Bible, that he had the name Jedediah. And it shows up here in this psalm. So, okay, so written by Solomon, and then it says a song of ascents. If you look, you see that title is found in all the Psalms around it.
Mhm.
So Psalm 120 to 134 is this kind of collection of
Mm.
songs that were used, that they sang regularly when they went to Jerusalem for a feast. And so Jerusalem is kind of up higher elevation. And so you go up whenever you go to Jerusalem. So ascend, the songs of ascents, and especially, going for feasts, going to the temple, going to meet God, you ascend to meet God as well.
Mm.
And so all of those were part of these songs of
Mhm.
ascents. And recognizing the connection then that, for us, these themes and messages, really get fulfilled in the person of Jesus. This is what it all pointed to. Jesus is the temple. Jesus is the high priest. Jesus is the sacrifice. All that was involved in those feasts was fulfilled in Jesus. And so these songs of ascents, we should connect with Christ as well. And so to keep that in mind as we look at this psalm. So question 2, what's the overall point of verses 1 and 2? Why are these particular examples used? Building a house, watching over a city. Or are these verses focused on the literal building of a house? So first of all, just that kind of big picture, what is the overall point of verses 1 and 2? What would you say?
Unless the Lord.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
He's
then
not a
beloved sleep comes from,
Mhm.
at the end of
Mhm.
verse 2. So it's really all, what I get out of those 2 verses is the Lord,
Yes.
Otherwise, everything is vain, vanity is,
Yep.
vanity is vanity,
Yep.
so yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Building is useless. Taking precautions is useless unless the Lord is in it, unless He is the one that we're depending on and relying on. Any other thoughts about that kind of big picture? What's the overall point of verses 1 and 2?
Well, to be careful what we're laboring for.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Is
What are
the
we
purpose
laboring
and
on?
the point of it Jesus versus things in this world? Temporary, physical, or is it what is focused on the Lord? Yeah. What about the why these particular examples? Building a house, watching over a city.
That was something that we've been very understandable or relatable to them. They probably all built their own
Yeah.
homes and they all lived within cities that had walls around and whatnot.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
could understand it.
Yeah, it was all very familiar, very understandable.
Mhm.
Any other?
Jesus is called the cornerstone too,
Yeah. Yeah.
And the wise man built his house upon the rock.
Yeah. It's the idea of the
Yeah.
house and
Mhm.
the city, ultimately the city of God, that we picture coming, and so all of that again connected to Christ. But just these are 2 very down to earth, normal aspects of life, living. And so, we don't limit it to these 2 things. It's all of our life is vain unless the Lord is in it, unless the Lord is acting, unless the Lord is building. And so just to recognize that. As we look at this picture, it relates a lot to work. So if the Lord is building the house, if the Lord is guarding the city, can we just sit back and watch? Hey, that's the Lord's job. I don't need to build my house. I don't need to watch the city because the Lord's doing that. I can just sit back here and put my feet up.
Somehow I get a feeling you're gonna say no.
I always think of the birds where he provides the food for them, but he doesn't stick it in their mouth.
Yeah.
They have to, well, they're up at the crack of dawn,
Yeah.
looking for stuff to eat, and, you know, we're supposed to work.
Yeah.
Well, you said in the sermon a few weeks ago, we have to cooperate with God.
Mhm.
You know, once
Yeah.
we have faith, and we have to respond to his prodding, you know, or.
You know, and the watchman still has to watch,
Mhm.
you know? The builder still has to build. It's about what are we dependent on? What is this all about? What is the focus? What is the purpose? It's not, I don't have to do anything, you know, we don't want to go that route for sure. So just to recognize that. But what about question 3 then? You find yourself struggling with the challenges described in verse 2. Getting up early, staying up late, struggling with anxious toil, lack of sleep. And then how does this psalm encourage you to respond? Is that a challenge? Getting up early, going to bed late.
Not anymore. Oh, we get up at 5 o'clock, and I said, you missed the 2 best hours of sleep. Why are you up at 5 o'clock?
It's my sleeping late.
This is
You know,
when I
I
wake up.
wish I could. Me too. But I wake up at 4 o'clock usually.
Oh.
Oh,
And then-
Oh, really? I
Sometimes
already
I'll
did
go
sleep
back
till
to sleep.
4:30 this morning, so.
But I can't
Yeah.
stay awake, you know, past 9. so-
Okay,
I
well,
try, but I
Yeah.
fall asleep anytime I sit down.
I know, me too. I keep moving.
But I
but
wish
you know what, you
sometimes I
have,
could eat
your
too.
body has a built-in clock.
Yeah.
When I worked, I never used an alarm clock.
Really?
And now if I'm going someplace, I have to have the alarm.
Yeah.
clock.
Yeah.
Sleep right through it, you know, so yeah, but your body has that internal clock.
Mhm.
You wake up same time every morning, Jim? With an alarm clock or without?
With alarm clock.
Oh, with alarm clock, okay. So you kind of wait for the alarm clock.
Yeah.
You wake up before it goes off? I usually do.
Fairly
If I set an alarm clock, I
Yeah.
usually wake up before the alarm
Yeah.
goes off, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's because I woke up and now I'm thinking about all the things I gotta do today.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
happens to me. It's like I have to try and keep my mind blank, but
Yeah,
I
think
feel
about-
like mine is blank a lot.
Yeah.
I just wake up at 4.
Yeah.
So then, but one thing I find very helpful is I'll do my devotions then,
sure.
because I'm up
and
anyway.
it's.
Mm.
And it's, yeah, and then
that time of
after I
day.
do my devotions,
Mhm.
then I'll fall back to sleep.
Oh.
And then I'll have had my devotions done, because otherwise, if you sleep till like 7, well, then it's
Mhm.
not long and you
Yeah.
gotta be fixing
Go,
breakfast.
go, go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yes.
it's not okay,
Yeah.
but I wish I could sleep later.
Yeah.
Oh.
I know, me too.
But when I was, when I was a truck driver, I drove at night and tried to sleep during the day.
Mhm.
And I was having a real issue with that. And I
Mm.
talked to my doctor. He sent me to a sleep psychiatrist.
Wow, really? I didn't know there
Yeah.
was such a thing.
Well, you know,
Hmm.
what he did for me was he gave me more than anything else, he just gave me a bunch of tips.
Mhm.
Mm.
And one of the things that helped me the most, I think, was that he said you have to go to bed and get up at the same time.
That's what
Mm.
I do, yeah.
Oh,
Right.
And
Yeah.
like before you go to bed, if you're, a lot of times, if you're the kind of person that goes to bed and you get all this stuff whirling around in your mind,
yeah.
write it down on a piece of paper
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
take a warm bath or hot bath.
Mhm.
And
Really?
you're emptying your mind, and then you're
Mhm.
you're relaxing your body.
Mhm.
But those two really kind of
Mm.
did help me.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know,
It has
the,
nothing to do with the Bible.
you know, to me, the real warning here is eating the bread of anxious toil. You know, and that's the danger, is that anxiety and stress
Mhm.
that, you know, keeps us from sleeping, or that we get so worked up and busy and I have to do this and I have to get this done, and we can't rest or relax. you know, and that's the danger, is that anxious toil.
Stress is a lot harder on the body than hard work.
Yeah, it can be. And, you know, it is interesting, you know, that there are two different words for work in Hebrew. The one is the word labor in verse 1, which can be productive or not, but it, you know, it can describe, you know, somebody who's working really hard and exhausted from their work, but it was good. You know, they accomplished what they planned to do, and they're tired, but you know, they feel good about it and got the job done. Labor, but the word for toil, there's no good there. It's just that, you know, stress, busyness, going crazy.
Cycle.
Yeah. So, yeah, two different pictures there. Might be doing the same thing, but the end result is very different. You know, one of the things that you look at that verse 2, the question might come to mind: is it sinful to work long hours? You know, do you rise early, go to bed late? Is that, hey, you can't do that? It's wrong.
No, that's not what it's saying.
Okay.
I mean, that's an overall pattern.
The motive is.
There are most
Yes.
people just,
Yeah.
there are times that has to happen, but
Right.
it's not an overall
Right.
pattern.
And so just to recognize that it's not the number of hours that God is counting here.
Yeah.
No, that's not the point. And you know, you think about it, what would a normal work day have been for most people in that day?
12 hours probably.
Probably.
Sun up to sundown.
Sun up, sundown. And you know, for the Jew, 6 days a week.
Mhm.
You know, that would have been what a normal person
Mhm.
did in their labor.
I
You know,
think even my mom and dad's generation.
yeah,
They had pretty much worked from the time they got up until
Yeah.
they went to bed at night.
Yeah.
You know, all the stuff on the farm and the animals and the gardens and
Yeah.
threshing crews. They talk about threshing crews and how you would get
Yeah.
finished all one
Yeah.
meal and start peeling more potatoes and it just
Yeah.
sounded like it was work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so just to recognize if we're talking about long hours, we got to make sure we think about what were those long hours like, you know, because that was normal, you know, that was a normal day. So, yeah. So, question 4, what is the point of the statement at the end of verse 2? He gives to his beloved sleep. What's the message that he wants us to get from that?
That's even a gift from him.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Again, it's dependent on him being able to sleep. Yeah. Other things that he'd say, he gives to his beloved sleep.
Well, the word beloved kind of indicates that the person is a person of God. So that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And you know, to me, that word beloved really is intended to say you can sleep. You know, God will take care of you. You know, when I'm having things race through my mind, thinking about what I have to do, and so I can't sleep, I'm not trusting God. You know, but he loves me. He's going to take care of me. I don't have to spend all that time worrying about those things.
Yeah, I mentioned our psychiatrist was a secular psychiatrist.
But it, you know, it's just a great picture. You know, he gives to his beloved sleep.
It is a real peaceful, restful thought.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
to think about.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know, and I mentioned that
Marcia, wake up.
verse on Sunday from Psalm 121. You know, he who keeps you will not slumber. You know, I can sleep because he's not.
He's awake.
You know, he knows what's going on. He can take care of those things.
I like the phrase, God works the night shift.
Yeah, that really fits here. Yeah. Yeah. So question 5. Shift to a little different aspect of things in verses 3 through 5. How does our society view children? How do you think about children? What's your attitude towards them? How do you speak of them? And how does Psalm 127:3 describe children? What do you say about that first question? How does our society view children? What would you say overall?
I think it's gotten worse.
I do too,
Absolutely.
that's that.
What comes
I
to your
was gonna
mind
think.
when you say that?
Getting on an airplane and you see a family with little kids getting on and you look at the people's faces around them, and if they start screaming and hollering, there's no grace.
No.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
example, I think,
Mhm.
of how our society looks at children. Yeah.
Yeah,
Bother, yeah.
consider them disposable.
Yeah, their
Yeah.
financial burden, you know,
Yeah.
they tell you on the news how much it costs to raise a child, and it's like, well, what are they spending on those children?
I'm not sure.
More than it really does cost.
Well, I'm not sure what they're spending, because we certainly didn't spend that, but
Oh,
I don't know what, yeah,
like they're trying to
but-
scare you off.
but when you look at the abortion issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, that's a whole nother part of
Mhm.
it that,
Yep.
no, we don't
That's-
know, we're gonna want.
Mhm.
It's gonna be a real burden,
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Some of the what's going on with, I don't know, it's like your identity. You want to be a girl, you want to be a boy, you can go have the surgery, don't tell your parents,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Don't you think there's a sense in which our society is kind of schizophrenic about children?
Seems
You know,
like,
on one hand, hey, if you don't want it, abort it. But, you know, you see other situations where, you know, oh, it's so wonderful, your child's so beautiful, isn't that great? And people, you know, at least saying they want children,
Mhm.
you know, paying a lot of money to get children. You know, it doesn't fit very well, it
Mhm.
doesn't work.
Mhm.
And it's, our laws are that way too.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you can go get an abortion, but if you cause a car accident that kills that woman's fetus,
Yeah,
you got a double
Yeah.
homicide.
yeah, double homicide.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so
Okay.
it just
Yeah,
doesn't
double
make a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
And so, you know, one of the things as we look at this is just to recognize the, you know, the craziness of how our society views children. And to be careful that that doesn't infect us.
Mhm.
You know, how do I look at that child on the airplane that's screaming next to me?
Yeah.
Or, you know, the kid that's not behaving like I think they should, or, you know, doing something inappropriate. How do I view that child? And how do I talk about other people's kids? You know, and what's going on in my mind
Mhm.
when I think about children and families? So,
A comment I hear well, I've heard it often from new people that come to our church is, oh, and it's so nice to see kids in the church during the church service. And it's like, you know, they don't even seem to mind the noise. They just like seeing kids
Yeah,
in church.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's the noise from the kids, you know, they're there. I like that.
Yeah.
noise. It's like bells swinging in the ears.
Yeah.
how many there are, because you can't see them.
Come on.
It's fun to see. that.
The cutest thing on Sunday was when Titus looked at Jim and went,
see that?
No.
he
You
had
can
just,
go and have a piece of candy.
and he looked at Jim and went,
Oh, two.
Oh, really? Oh.
and Jim went,
Titus two.
no
Ryan.
words.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Oh,
Who's this child?
Titus, the young,
Thunberg.
well, not the youngest anymore.
Thunberg.
Yeah, Thunberg, the
They just
little,
They just had little Hazel.
But it's their
Baby.
little boy that.
Yeah.
So funny.
So what about the end of this? How does Psalm 127:3 describe children?
Gift from the Lord, or their reward from him, it says, yeah.
Yeah. Heritage, a reward, a gift, they're from the Lord. So just recognizing how this psalm looks at children. So as you look at this and think about this picture, what are a few of the most important things you would tell a young family that would help them to make sure it's the Lord who's building their home? Lots of things that could be said, but what would you say some of the most important things would be to tell a young family?
You need God in there.
Mhm,
God needs to be a vital part
mhm,
of everything they do.
yeah, yeah,
Dad's gonna take a big role in this.
yeah. That's amazing to, look at some of the statistics from studies about the value of the father in the home.
Mm.
Yeah. It's not to say a single mom can't be a good parent. A lot of them do heroic things. But we recognize in the big picture the value of a father in the home. Yeah.
I guess I must be nostalgic tonight or something, but I'm thinking back to my childhood and, you know, there were 4 kids in the family and my dad, was always, had to go off to work and stuff, but we would have breakfast together and dad would read the
Mhm.
daily bread.
Mhm.
And, so, that's how the day started. And then they drugged me to everything. I was at all these Bible studies, so even though, I was sometimes
Oh,
just
yeah.
playing in the background,
Right.
but you hear
Yeah.
these things going on, you hear your parents praying
Yeah.
about things and you see them reading their Bible. And then church, they took us to church. We never missed church. It didn't matter where we were.
Right,
We were traveling, we found a church
Yeah.
somewhere
Yes.
that goes,
Yeah.
and they'd
Yeah.
send us to Sunday school.
Yeah.
Boy, did I hate that.
Yeah.
But those are the things I'm so thankful for
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
because that's what ingrained,
Yeah.
the Lord and his word and stuff in my heart, was being at all those places and doing all those things. And that's what I think a lot of families are missing nowadays. And in this day and age, it's more important than ever that they are directing these kids to God, because I've seen in our own family what happens when there's not a lot of, there's no either church going or Bible reading, or that, these kids are so lost, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
And that's what'll happen. So
And they're, we don't go to church because it's a habit, but that helps.
it does.
Mhm.
I think it does.
Building up those routines even of doing it, because it's so easy to if you've been sick or like with COVID, it's to get out of those routines, and Satan just wants us not to come to
That's
church.
what I was just thinking.
Yeah,
Satan wants us to be alone.
yeah.
He really does.
Yeah, and so all those, sometimes, I know I've heard moms say, I don't know why I come to church, I didn't hear a thing in the sermon. But they are training their kids. Come to church on
Yeah.
Sunday.
I remember
Mm-hmm.
feeling like that.
Yeah,
These poor kids cutting up in the pews, we were giving them cereal and Tootsie Roll, anything we could think of. Quiet, sometimes you had to drag one out and jack them up a little bit.
Yeah.
I just come home exhausted, and I'm like,
Yeah.
why?
yeah, but we're building.
And that's the feeling,
Yeah.
though. That's what you feel. But,
Yeah.
to just be able to see that big picture.
Yeah.
And despite the challenge in the immediate,
Yeah.
there's value there. Yeah. But it's hard, and, the expectations and the standards have changed so much. It's hard.
The little boy's being carried out and he hollers back, pray for me. As he's screaming and being carried out. But you're right, you're exhausted the time you get home,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and you feel like.
I
you
mean,
didn't get a
not
thing
our
out of
boys,
it.
not our angels, I'm not, but I could just see parents that, why do we do this? I mean,
Yeah.
we're so beat up by the time we get back home from church that, oh.
And even getting up.
I was just gonna say it's like a war.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
the only day your kids will sleep in. Yeah.
Definitely not on Saturday.
No, that's exactly right. It was always tough getting everybody up and ready and
Yeah.
eating
Yeah.
and get out the door and then we. Sometimes, you know, it had just been an awful morning, but then you walk in. Face
that smile on.
Memories.
I'm so glad we just had 2 kids.
I have to tell you just one more story. We were gonna take the kids out to J.C. Penney's to get a picture taken one time, so I think we just had 3 of them at the time. But you know, that was always just, it took an act of God to get a family picture, and usually they had a skinned up nose or something. I remember this one particular time, and it had been just terrible. But we had everybody dressed, and we got there. And we managed to smile on the picture and look, but my dress is kind of hanging. I didn't have it hooked at the top. My dress was kind of hanging out on one side. And the kids all looked, you know, pretty good considering for them all. It had just been so terrible. And I thought, this is so funny because you want this picture to make it look like everything is like, it was terrible to get it, but.
Oh, but how fun to look at it.
Yeah.
It has the best picture of, it wasn't a family, it was just your kids, wasn't it? Or was it with your dad?
No, it was just the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6
And
kids.
we looked at that picture and laughed because every one of them just about, you could just see there was something
Wrong.
Yeah, Philip had a black eye. You could, I think it was Connie had been crying. You could see that. Yeah, it was just funny. They just have such a fun time looking at that picture.
Yes.
It's, you know, important that God be the foundation. You know, that's the main thing. So, so a couple other questions though, as we end. In what sense would children be like arrows in the hand of the warrior? You know, that's the image that he gives in verse 4, like arrows in the hand of a warrior are children of one's youth.
Sometimes we want to put them in the boat and shoot them out into the woods. And don't come back until you want to eat all your cereal.
Well, I think arrows are for protection,
Okay.
and I think that children are able to protect you as you age, and you know, I'm thankful that we have the kids, because I just think, you know, if we didn't have any children and we get old, who's gonna take care of us?
I know, and there's a lot of that.
And,
And
you know,
we miss you too.
it is interesting that, you know, it does talk about, you know, the children of one's youth.
Yeah.
And so the idea is, you know,
Now you're not a youth.
yeah, when you get older,
Yeah.
they'll be adults
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
able to help.
Help
and
you,
step in.
yeah.
When I was in Zambia, okay,
Yeah.
I always would start the conversation with how many children do you have? You know, to the teachers in
Yeah.
school, basically, you know. Oh, I only have 4.
Hmm.
And I'm going,
Only.
4? Yeah, only 4 as well. In America, you know, 4 is,
Yeah.
you know,
That's a lot.
very
That's
typical.
really-
Yeah, typical. I said, you know, 2, 3. So why do they look down on you for that? Oh, because you're expected to have 10 to 12 children, okay?
Mm.
So one of them is still alive when I get old to take care of me, out of the 10 or 12.
Right.
Of course, it was the middle of the AIDS
Yeah.
epidemic over there
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was their mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why they had it, so somebody's there, because you don't go to nursing home, you go home, you know, to your family. Your family takes care of you when you get
Yeah.
old. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm. That was interesting.
Mhm.
You
Had
know,
nothing to do with the story, Jim.
Well,
but,
no.
No,
I mean, it does really, though.
yeah.
But you know, an arrow in the hand of a warrior, that's what makes that warrior equipped for battle to do the work. And that idea of the arrow, you know, it's possibly that idea too of, you know, the warrior shoots the arrow in the battle to fight, to accomplish the task. And so, you know, the picture of the godly family raising the children and then sending them out to be part of God's kingdom's work in the battle that we're fighting in this world. And so, you know, that imagery might play into this as well. But in this context, really getting to question 8 on relating that, can you imagine a situation that would explain the point being made in Psalm 127, the end of verse 5? Why would having a quiver full of children mean that a man would not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate?
I wondered that same thing. I thought that's.
It's a, you know, it's a interesting picture. You know, he's enemies in the gate, but he won't be put to shame if he's got a quiver full of arrows of children. What would that be talking about? What would
So
that
when
be?
when they come to take over the land, the enemies come to take,
Okay.
they have a lot of soldiers that they can take back with them for their army,
Okay.
because I like your children, they're really strong. So we're not putting you to shame because we, you know.
What about protecting your kids?
Okay.
Maybe wouldn't you fight harder if your family was invaded by the
Yeah.
enemy?
Sure. Yeah, that's an interesting piece of that. Yeah,
Mine says when they contend with their enemies in the gate, you says speak.
Yeah, that's what mine
Oh.
says.
yeah, but
Yeah, do you think
that would
that
be the idea.
enemies would be put off if you had a lot of children? They would be scared off, kind of?
It seems like that could be a piece of this picture. You know, I gotta see if I can find it.
Because the gate is where they want to come into the city and it's guard, is that right? They have to.
You know,
enter in.
that could be the picture, or the gate is where, you know, like the public gathering place. If somebody has a problem to bring up about the community or a person, you go to the gate and meet, and the elders are there and
Mhm,
can make a decision.
mhm.
You know, there's a dispute happening, it would be taken care of at the gate. And so the one commentator put it this way: this pictures the children of one's youth now grown and standing with their father when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. It will be hard for the enemies to intimidate such a man. And another commentator put it this way: a man with a household of hefty young men will be no pushover in these circumstances. And so that, you know, that could be the picture, is he's not alone here when he has somebody come in opposition. He's got his family standing with
There's
them.
more to stick up, more people
Yeah.
to stick up for you, that's what I would think.
Yeah.
that
But
kind of-
what would the spiritual message be, you think? I mean, that's the
Practical.
practical,
Mhm.
physical
Yeah.
situation, but is there a spiritual message there?
You know, how does that apply to our lives today? You know, we don't have to go to the gate and gather our kids around us to face off with our enemies. But it, you know, I think there is something to, you know, if you've got family that you can count on, that support you, that does help you in the battle that goes on, giving you some, you know, moral support, spiritual support, praying for you, helping, watching out, you know, so. Yeah.
A quiver, is that where you keep your arrows?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so, you know, if you think in terms of spiritual warfare and we're shooting out these
Uh-huh.
arrows,
Mhm.
these children, could they be you know, our church family has a lot of children. and
Yes,
You don't have.
yes. Yeah, I think you could expand it beyond the
Yeah.
physical necessarily. You know, it definitely is talking about family here, literally,
Yeah.
but spiritually, the principle
Mhm.
is having people that can stand with you and support
Right.
you
Right.
when trouble comes, when
Mhm.
difficulty comes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So the last question, which we've kind of talked a little bit about, but it relates to some of these things, is having a large number of children a command from God based on verse 5? And how does Genesis 1:28 relate to this question? Genesis 1:28, God saying to Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. So is God commanding people to have a large number of children?
First Jeff Munseth, okay, friend's
Yeah,
dad,
yeah.
okay? When their number 6 was born,
Mhm.
well, it says in the Bible, be fruitful and multiply. Yeah, but not all by yourself, he says.
Everybody's.
More than just me. Gotta get more.
I got a guy in the veterans home that has 14 siblings.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Well, up at Knack Knack, the one time we were there, there was a gentleman that was not married, he was in the Bible study on the north side of the river. And his goal in life was to have 12 children with 12 different women.
Oh, boy.
And if I wouldn't have gotten into jail, I'd have made it.
Oh.
But he was arrested and put in jail.
Oh,
But
my.
he was a Christian, he turned his life around.
Oh.
I don't know if it was Jeff that done that or not, but yeah,
Ah,
but he had turned his life around, was a
Oh.
believer at this time.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that was his goal in life.
I don't know, I mean, if it was a command from God, it would make a lot of people feel badly, you know, if
Yeah.
they can't have
Right,
children, or just
right,
have for
right.
one reason or another.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To have kids, but I think. I don't know what I think.
I guess I didn't go to that Twilight Zone.
It's not a command, he's just saying children are a blessing.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Lord,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
welcome them.
Yes.
Yeah.
To multiply and fill the earth, I mean, yeah, obviously,
As
wanted,
a whole population.
yeah, wanted them to go out and have
Yeah.
children and
Yes.
stuff, so.
And if you don't have children, support those that do, you know,
Yes.
help them
Yes.
or, oh,
Yeah.
wonderful. You know, if
Right.
I see a big family, because some people are made to feel guilty for
Right,
having a lot of
right,
children and
right.
irritating it. Oh, how wonderful that would be.
Yeah.
We're so lucky, you know, and really make you
Yeah.
feel good about it,
Yeah.
because I think
Yeah.
they're criticized a lot. They're making a
Right.
big footprint, you know.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
yes.
Like,
Mhm.
But I mean, you know, what you talk about in Africa, you know, that would have been similar to what they would have been dealing with
Mhm.
in
Sure.
Solomon's day. You know, you need a lot of kids because how many of them are gonna make it? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
and so,
yeah.
you know, that was important and it made a difference in their
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
I wonder in our own culture, when, as this nation was growing up, and these
Sure.
farmers and
Yeah.
settlers heading out west and
Yeah.
all this and that, and they
Yeah,
Mhm.
probably needed a lot of kids.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And so just to recognize, this isn't a command and it shouldn't be understood as a command. But it is something saying to us, how do we look at children? How do we value children? You know, that's the thing that's
Yeah. Yeah.
the message that needs to come through. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for the gift of family. Lord, I thank you for our Calvary family. And Lord, thank you for your blessing of children and just the wonder of the children we see around us. Lord, help us to recognize those gifts, that treasure that you give. And Lord, help us to appreciate that good gift from you. Help us to recognize too, in our families, but also in our lives from day to day, that we need you and that you are the one that we depend on for all things, and that we can trust you and rest in you. Lord, thank you for being here with us. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. We're not meeting next week. VBS will take a week off, but then we will meet the week after. And the next psalm we're doing if you love Psalm 127, you'll get the opposite.
Oh.
Another challenging one.
136,
137.
7, oh.
So if you would like a head start, there is a study guide here, so.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll head over to deal with it.
Yes.
I gotta do something with them two girls.
Yeah. I mean,